Hello everyone, welcome back to Kanji Oboema show. Today we will not be doing the kanjis from the Kodansha Kanji Learners course. Instead, we will take a short detour and look at a fundamental concept of learning kanjis, that is to say, radicals. So, radicals are called bushu in Japanese, of which the bu part we have already done. So, I will show you the kanji of it. This is bu. You don't know the kanji for shu, but basically this means chief section. That is to say, this is the literal meaning of the kanjis. The correct meaning is that this is the chief component of the kanji. Chief component of the kanji. So that's basically what radicals are. Now, it is not always possible to guess what the radical of a kanji could be by looking at the kanji. The radicals of each kanji which is in use today has been decided to be a particular part of it long before the current Joyo kanji list or regular use kanji list was created. I think I have mentioned this before. Kanjis have been used for several centuries. I think almost about a millennium in Japan by now. So over the course of those many years, it was already decided several times that this particular kanji, let us say this A kanji, is going to have this as the radical. Upon looking at it, we as non-natives without much historical context may not be able to understand why the particular component has been treated as a radical or it is considered the chief component of the kanji, but just know that there is some reasoning behind it which is not necessary at all for us to get into. That said, because radicals are the chief component, it is possible, not always, but it is possible to come to understand several aspects of the kanji. That is to say, I think this will be an example. So, I think I mentioned this. This is supposed to be the kanji for water. The kanji for water. And this, whenever this stroke comes up and it is supposed to be the radical, you can understand that the kanji has something to do with liquids. So this kind of meaning can be gleaned once we know what is the radical of a particular kanji. This is just an example, and it is not usually this holds true. That is to say, when you know the radical and you know what the radical is supposed to represent, you can usually come to some conclusions about what the kanji could be referring to, but it does not always happen, and sometimes we may even be wrong about what the actual radical is. So we need to, in at least in some cases, we need to memorize what the radical of a kanji is rather than be able to guess it, or rather than think that we will be able to guess the radical of every single kanji just because we know that this particular just because we know the entire radical list. Okay, that's it. This is just a bit of trivia. There are, I think, 214 radicals that are historically identified, not all of which are currently in use, but that's just trivia for now. Okay, now let's have a look at types of radicals. Okay, there are 7 types. We'll go one by one. The first is called hen. So if this is a kanji, the box represents the entire space the kanji takes up. If this is a kanji, then the hen necessarily comes on the left part. So that's a hen. Okay. An example just now that we saw, I don't remember which kanji we have done with those 3 strokes. Let me try and remember. Yeah, I think I got it. I think it is katsu, right? So here, this part, this is the hen. Okay. Now let's have a look at the next one. It's called tsukuri. Okay, tsukuri will necessarily come from the right part. It is usually present on the right side of the kanji. Okay, I am unable to come up with an example right now, but if we are familiar, or if we have covered, or if we are going to cover any such examples, I will make sure to mention them. Okay, the third is ashi. I think I have briefly mentioned what ashi is. Ashi is just legs. So this radical will come at the bottom part of the kanji. Okay, let's look at the next type. You have kanmuri. So if this is the kanji, the kanmuri will necessarily come at the top. Okay, then you have tare. So the tare will be something like this. It will cover that kind of L shape. Okay, necessarily on the left and top, that is to say. Then you have nyo. Nyo. And the nyo, I think, is like this. Okay, and then you have kamae. Kamae is perhaps the biggest category per se, because of the number of varieties in which it can show up. This is not the complete, that is, it doesn't have only 4 variations, it has several other variations, but for now we will just look at 4. So kamae is supposed to be an enclosure. Okay, let me just write a couple of things down. So ashi is like feet or legs, kanmuri is like crown. Okay, and kamae is enclosure. I don't know the rest of them, which is why I have not mentioned them. So it can be a complete enclosure. For example, in the case of country, the kanji for country, it can be an enclosure like this. It can be an enclosure like this. It can be a stroke like this. Okay, there are several possible variations to this. Okay, now you don't have to remember these things, but why radicals can be meaningful, or it can be good to know them, is because if you know the radical, then you may be able to understand what kind of thing is being talked about. So to give you an example, all kanjis for body parts kanjis for body parts usually have the moon stroke in them, or rather this the kanji for moon will appear as a component in several kanjis which are associated with body parts. So one thing is, if you know, or rather if you're able to see moon, and if you have some idea about, or rather if you have some context about the conversation that is going on, you can guess that what is being talked about is some part of the body, because this moon kanji has shown up. Okay, if you can remember things like this, that is to say, the radical for moon often comes together with the meaning of body parts, then you can come to some conclusion about what is being talked about without necessarily knowing exactly what is being talked about. Okay, similarly, when it comes to things like the things that I just mentioned, hen and tsukuri. So usually a hen is on the left side, like I said. Okay, and the tsukuri is on the right side. Okay, A lot of times what happens is hen will be able to tell you what the object is related to, or rather what class of things are we talking about, or what class of concepts are we talking about. Okay, just like in the case of moon. So if I get the moon kanji here, then I can be like, oh okay, we must be talking about body parts or something that has to do with bodies, that is our body. Okay, that is one example. In case of tsukuri, the component that comes on the right side can usually give you a hint about the pronunciation or the reading. Okay, it can give you some hint. So to give you an example, if you remember this kanji stands for 5. It is read as go. In a lot of kanjis, you will see this coming up as a component, and whenever this comes up as a component on the right side as a tsukuri, the reading will usually be go. Something something go. The meaning will change, of course. Not it won't be 5. It may not even have anything to do with the concept of 5 or the number 5, but the reading will be go. So there will be some hint about how you can read it. So for example, if you are appearing for the JLPT exam and you are in the Mojigoi section, and you are able to see a kanji and you have to guess what the reading could be, if this is a component part and you're able to see it in the tsukuri side, you are better off taking a guess that has the sound of go in it, rather than choosing a kanji which does not have the go pronunciation at all. I'm not saying it's going to be 100% accurate. I'm just saying your odds of getting it right are better. Okay, so this is basically a brief introduction to radicals. How I'm going to be using, or how the book Kodansha Kanji Learners course uses it, is in several places when I apologize. In several places, when we have to try and remember the mnemonic, it usually becomes helpful if we are able to understand the meaning of the particular component. So let us say you have a kanji like this, and let us say you have a hen here, and this hen, if you know the meaning of this hen, or if you are able to form some kind of mnemonic using the hen and its meaning, it may be possible to prepare or make a memory clue or a memory trigger to remember the entire combined meaning of this kanji. And this same meaning we can carry forward when it comes to interpreting different kanjis. So in this case, so let us say this is how this is, and this is like 1, and in this case you have again the same component, but then this part is something else. This is 2. You can still use the meaning of the particular radical and then try and construct a mnemonic for each of these kanjis, and the book attempts this fairly often. An example that I would like to give you right now, if you just hold on. Excuse me. This is kanji number 70 that we are talking about. Okay. Okay. If you remember, this kanji stands for become, form, or achieve. Now this kanji, the radical for this kanji happens to be this part. Okay, this part. Now this part is spear. Okay, the meaning of this radical is spear. Okay, now here the meaning, or rather the, so here if you look at the points of difference between the radical and the kanji, you will see that only this part is different. So these two strokes are different. Now think of it for now, think of this part from the above kanji for now as being a kind of guide for the spear, or a railing along which the spear will flow so that it will hit its intended target. So let us think of it as a guide. Now the only thing that is left is this little part, this little part. So you can think of this whole kanji, or rather you can think of this particular red part as what was needed to complete the form of the kanji. Okay, what was needed to complete the form of the kanji. Now a word that comes very close to the intended meaning of the mnemonic is this. So trying to remember this word along with this kanji will definitely help you out. I hope you remember because we've already covered it. Okay, this will be read as Seijin, Seijin, which basically means adult or coming of age. Coming of age. Coming of age here means you have finally become an adult. So things like that. So this is an example of how the book uses mnemonics, and the book goes on to use this same mnemonic meaning spear to prepare mnemonics for other kanjis as well. So in future, if it is possible to convey a mnemonic easily with the help of a radical, I will introduce a radical. I will tell you the meaning of the radical, and I will also tell you the mnemonic wherever it is easy. So that is basically the use of radicals. And again, in the exams, if you know, let us say, the pronunciation of some kanji which has a component, and then you see the same component appear in a different kanji of which you have to guess the reading or meaning, you may have some success if you try to arrive at the pronunciation or meaning of the kanji in question based on the knowledge that you previously have. So that is basically where you use radicals. I would definitely say it would be foolish to try and memorize all the radicals, because it is not really useful. That level of academic knowledge is not even expected of most non-Japanese people. So I would say don't waste your energy in that. Just try and learn these kanjis. Even in fact, rather Japanese people in organizations and places, most of the time they don't even expect you to be able to read and write kanjis all that well. The primary expectation from their side is for you to be able to speak to them and for you to be able to understand what they're trying to say. So the primary goal is on a speech level or a conversation level. If you can manage that, I wouldn't exactly call it smooth sailing from there, but it is definitely a very good point to start from. But if you're going to use it for work, let us say as a translator, as an interpreter, the knowledge of kanji is going to be invaluable to you. And in several cases, in conversations where kanji compounds show up as words repeated fairly often, you'll be able to guess what those words are without too much difficulty. So that's basically the use of kanjis. This has been a very short session, but I hope it's refreshing. It's a difference from our usual 1 hour long lecture series. So hopefully you can take away something meaningful from this. Thanks a lot. See you next time.